Steve Mayer, the NHL's president of events and content, joins the show to talk all things Winter Classic, as well as the state of the NHL.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1451 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. So we got a very special episode for you guys here today. As I just mentioned a second ago, going to be joined by just a second by Steve Mayer, the NHL's president of events and content. Going to be talking all things Winter Classic, obviously the game itself between the Rangers and the Panthers, everything that goes into making this event what it is, the challenges of doing an outdoor game in the state of Florida. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the mini-series, The Road to the Winter Classic, which Steve happens to be an executive producer for, and also going to talk more about just outdoor NHL games in general, what the future might hold as far as, NHL outdoor games is concerned, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Definitely looking forward to talking with Steve, and with no further ado, enjoy. All right, and so with no further ado, joining me at this time, our very special guest for today, Mr. Steve Mayer, the NHL's president of events and content. And first of all, Steve, thanks for joining the show here today. I know this is obviously an exciting time for the NHL, a busy time with the Winter Classic right upon us here. And I wanted to ask you about the little twist that there is in the Winter Classic this year, doing it in Florida for the first time, the first NHL outdoor game in the state of Florida. What made you guys think that the time was right for this? And, how excited are you to bring this event to Florida for the first time?
Well, we're super excited. It's actually interesting. I was reminded that when we announced the game, Gary Bettman announced the game on TNT, our commissioner said, a lot of people are going to think we're crazy. I wouldn't go that far. We're super excited about this one. It's well thought out. We think it's well deserved. The Florida market has just been booming, as you know, in the hockey world. The Panthers obviously winning the last 2 cups, and before that, Tampa Bay Lightning. So we always have been talking mostly to Tampa about an outdoor game, and because that's truly an outdoor game here. I'll tell you a little secret. We have a huge advantage because we were able to build the rink and everything around it with the roof of the baseball stadium at Lone Depot Park closed. We're going to open it for the game. And, if we're looking at temperatures for the night of the game, we're looking good. We're going to be in the low 60s, high 50s. But things are going great. I'm so excited. I mean, this is an area that deserves the game. I'm very curious to see the split of fans because, as you know, John, there's a lot of Ranger fans that either have moved to Florida or are vacationing right now in Florida, and that'll be fun. And that's one of the reasons we chose the Rangers as the opponent. But this is going to be a good one, and I'm really feeling good. We're only a few days away, but we feel like we've put together what will be a memorable outdoor game.
Absolutely. And you actually touched on something that I was going to ask you about there, that dynamic, the mix of fans. Obviously the Panthers, business is booming for them, winning a couple of cups recently, and, the Ranger fans being down there as well. The cool thing about that to me is, you'll get whatever happens in this game, good or bad for either team, you're going to get a loud reaction, and it's going to come across that way on the broadcast, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think the energy is going to be spectacular, and probably more so than almost any other outdoor game we've done. We did a game in Nashville a few years ago, and it was against Tampa Bay, and there were about 25,000 of the 75,000 that were Tampa Bay Lightning fans, and it really did feel different in the building. Like, to your point, every play, you heard the noise, the energy, everybody was excited. Here, I don't know this for a fact because, again, most of our ticket sales have been from Florida. But as you know, could be to Ranger fans. And it'll be interesting to see that dynamic. I think it's going to add to the excitement of the game. And let's face it, a really important game for both teams that are, going to be, it looks like, on the bubble for the playoffs as they move on. So, and everybody has to realize this is a real NHL game. This is not an exhibition. And so we treat it as such. But I'm excited to we won't know until we see it for real, but we do think it's going to be quite the energetic hockey game because you're going to have Ranger fans and Panther fans. But like what's gone on here is something to behold. I mean, the fan base in Florida, it's just grown dramatically. Obviously, winning breeds, that energy of the fan base, and you get to pick up more fans along the way. But we remember 10 years ago going to Florida Panther games where you're talking about the majority of fans would have been Ranger fans. That's not the case anymore. This buzzing area is all about hockey. It's all about this game. It's really cool for me. We're from the New York area, our entire events team. And yet you come down here and all people are talking about is this game, which is, it's very exciting. When you're an event producer, you want people to be talking about what you're about to do. And they certainly are here in Miami.
Absolutely. And, generally speaking, I feel like, you look at the history of outdoor games in the NHL, and I feel like it's gotten a little bit more common as the years have gone by here. I mean, does it get to a point, is there any long-term goal where maybe this would be overkill, but would there ever be a time where you try to do one outdoor game each for every team in the NHL? I just think that would be really unique and obviously very special for all the fan bases who would love to be able to experience this.
Yeah, listen, we're down to 2 teams that haven't played in an outdoor game. It's actually the Florida Panthers, so we're going to, on Friday, check that box off, and the Utah Mammoth, which move actually from Arizona. So almost every fan base has had an outdoor game. Some have not had home games. They've had away games. I will say that, these are really complicated, and a lot of teams have actually over the years come to us and said, what if we put our own game on? And then they start to try to figure out how to do it. It's not as simple as you might think. I mean, there's a lot that goes to it in terms of building out the ice. You need a team that's specializing in outdoor hockey, and the ice is actually a science. The way the field is designed and the costs that are also involved. It's not as simple as, hey, we want to do it. I think, we all are looking at what's the expansion of this. We're probably doing now the 2 games, 1 Stadium Series, 1 Winter Classic, and we do every other year a Heritage Classic, which is the Canada outdoor game. So, we don't want to also overkill, but we feel that the games themselves are still going strong. In these markets, they sell out every time. We've never not had a sellout. And they're the talk of the town. And have they continued to resonate globally? You know what? It's been a long run, and it still is our number 1 rated broadcast of the regular season, bar none. So there's still the power of the outdoor game. You have to be careful about overdoing it. You want to keep the excitement up. Yes, it's an outdoor game and I can't wait. Oh, that's Friday, the Winter Classic. So you want to keep that up, but at the same time, you want to also think of ways to expand the property and to keep it fresh and unique. And we also do that in how we approach each game too.
Makes sense to me. And so we'll keep everything rolling in just a second here. We, of course, talking to Steve Mayer. And we are going to discuss the Road to the Winter Classic miniseries. Also going to be, getting into all things Winter Classic and everything having to do with this year's event. We'll do all that good stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. There is nothing like being near the ice during hockey season. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is great, but being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets. Long queues, endless screens, and prices changing at checkout. That is why the Gametime app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the ultimate hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences all in just a few taps. Gametime is the best because you can check out all upcoming NHL games, and you'll be pretty surprised to find out how fast it is to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use. Browsing, comparing, and buying tickets takes only minutes. One of the absolute best features, one of my personal favorites, I've talked about this before, is the View Your Seat feature, which allows you to essentially just get a look from your seat before you buy your tickets so you know exactly what you're signing up for before you purchase. Bottom line, take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. All right, so talking with Steve Mayer here, and Steve, definitely wanted to ask you, I noticed that you're one of the executive producers on the Road to the NHL Winter Classic mini-series that's currently ongoing, and we've got one episode left, 3 have already aired, but just wanted to ask you about that and just your work on that, and, just how you think this year's edition has gone. We get some really unique looks at some of these players, both on and off the ice, so just your thoughts on how that mini-series has gone, covering the Rangers and the Panthers this year.
Yeah, so I need to take my event hat off and put my content hat on. Well, listen, the Road to Winter Classic is a classic series now. It started on HBO and it continues to thrive. Now it's on TNT and on HBO Max. We also air it on our NHL YouTube channel, and of course the content on all of our socials. What's awesome is the cooperation of the two teams that are playing in the game. From the beginning of time, and believe me, the Rangers have done this a few times. The team gives us that access in the 4 to 6 weeks leading up to the game. We get to meet the players. For those that are not from the New York area or are not Ranger fans or Panther fans, they get a glimpse of the interest in the game, but who are the players and a little bit about their personality, give them a rooting interest. It's for us an incredible promotional tool for the game, but it's a high quality series. It's been an award-winning series. This year has been really great. We've gotten access from the Rangers in some special ways and the Florida Panthers as well. We want to just take people inside, behind, the scenes, give them that moment that they can't get by just watching a game. And I think we accomplished that. For us, it's a huge thank you to the teams as well, because, they let us into their lives, and that's super unique. And we're really proud of the 3 episodes that we've done, as you've mentioned, and the ones to come as we get closer to the game.
Absolutely. Is there a moment from that series that stands out as kind of like your favorite, or maybe you got to be a part of it in some way or another, like with this player or with that player, whatever it might be?
I don't know. In this series, there's been a few that I've really liked.
Yeah.
I think there's certain players that we just like and respond to. Vincent Trocheck for the Rangers. Is a guy who lets you into not only his life, but his family. You get a nice peek into his world. I think, there's not one in this particular series that I would be like, wow, this was super cool. But I think overall, we want to be able to take people sort of behind the wall, and I think we've done that.
So I wanted to ask you about this too.
What's your favorite moment?
Oh, I think the stuff with Mika Zibanejad, that's he's somebody that, I think over the years, Ranger fans have kind of run hot and cold with him. There's times where he's the man. There's other times where, we got to trade this guy and all this stuff, right? But I think, getting to see him with his family behind the scenes, and I thought the ride along with him in his car was just kind of fun. And then you get to see him, of course, with his wife and his daughter. And as the father of a young girl myself, I was able to relate to that. I thought that was really a special moment in that show.
Yeah, and again, what I love, the players allowing us, even if it's just a few minutes of their time, it goes a long way. And to your point, like, listen, you're close to it, but for a Ranger fan, you're right. Like, it humanizes the guy in a different manner. It gives you a peek that you probably haven't seen or you just wish you would see. And, whether it changes your opinion of somebody, I don't know, but it's intended to be feel good. It is produced by the league. We want it to be really super positive. We want to show the players doing things in the community, but also the fact that they're like you and I. And I think that's the most important thing, John. You hit it. You have a daughter. Like, that's like me. Like, in some ways, when they're off the ice, they are like you and I. And when we show that and they show that side of themselves, I think it goes a very long way. And our fans love that.
Yeah, and I would also say that, of all the major sports, like the pro athletes, I think the ones in the NHL come across as, like, I guess the most relatable, or in some ways, I don't know what the right word is, maybe like the most humble, so to speak. I mean, do you get that sense as well? And I'm not taking shots at anybody from any other sport. That's just
I'm not either, but let's, and we've said this many, many times, like, our players walk down the street and many times can walk down the street because they're not 7 feet tall. They don't weigh 300 pounds. They're athletes and the greatest athletes, in my opinion, maybe in the world, but yet you don't know that. So, you could be out at a restaurant and a NHL star could be sitting right next to you. Do you know that that's an NHL star? But if you're sitting at a restaurant and some guy 7 foot tall is sitting next, you probably go, I wonder if he plays in the NBA, and so I think the relatable part of it is what makes our players, one, approachable, and two, so likable. And so I'm with you. And that's what we want to show, like them doing things that you and I would do, and it makes a difference. And I do think certain players have bought into that, and it's helped our popularity as a league.
Absolutely. So we'll keep everything rolling here in just a second. Going to continue talking to Steve Mayer here, and got a couple more questions for him about the Winter Classic. We will do that in just a second. All right. So, Steve, I got to ask you this. You can put your fan hat back on for this one. So the Winter Classic, obviously there's this big buildup and all this anticipation. The fan bases are excited. Hockey fans everywhere are excited. But then the Winter Classic is here. The puck finally drops, and you get to just watch the game and take it in as a fan, with the rest of us, along with whatever else you might be doing. But most of the hard work is done, I think, by the time the puck drops, for you and everybody else that works on it. So what's that moment like? It comes to fruition, and away we go, Rangers versus Panthers, and should be a good game.
Yeah, you say that, and I don't want to go in the opposite direction. Actually, a lot of our work actually takes place during the game. It's there's so many different movements and so many things that have to happen to make the experience from the time somebody walks in the building to the time they leave unique. And essentially what we're doing as an event team and some people individually is you're making all these different calls as the game happens. And you'll see, like, everything from, the opening introductions, it's choreographed, but yet it's the moment that it happens that we're all making movements happen. And it's the broadcast that, we work on along with TNT, but our events team actually are the ones that broadcast the entertainment moments, whether it's the intermission music performance or the opening. And then there's other things like fireworks, and you're going to see some things that we're going to do that are very unique to this game that, like, will make us very busy as the game goes on. That being said, in the end of the day, it's a hockey game, and once the puck is dropped from, whistle to whistle to end the period, the focus is on the ice and is on two teams that right now need a win, and this could be very important as you look down towards the end of April at who's making the playoffs and who's not. We understand that. That's why the ice has to be of the highest quality, and that's why the experience for the players, has to be, even though unique, has to be an NHL experience, and we realize that. There's 300 people that are credentialed that are on our events team. And yes, there's preparation for weeks leading up to it, but there's a significant amount that gets done the day of the game that needs to go perfectly. Like, we take a lot of pride in, really honing in on every single aspect and having every I dotted and T crossed, and we need this to be great, and we always take a lot of pride in how we put these together and the experience for the fan.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you about this too. I watched an interview that you did a couple of years back. You were talking about the Lake Tahoe games.
Yes.
And you compared it to, the movie Mystery Alaska, right? Kind of like this idea that middle of nowhere kind of thing. But It got me thinking a little bit, like, do you have and it can be as off the wall, over the top as you want it to be. Do you have a dream destination where you would just love to do, whether it's the Winter Classic or any kind of outdoor hockey game, just something that you have in mind that would be the ultimate goal or the ultimate fun thing for you to do?
Yeah. So I will say it's our goal and our commissioner's goal, and to always play these outdoor games in front of as many fans as we can. He loves the outdoor aspect of it. Obviously, we've sold out every single game we've ever done. I, as an event producer, so I'm now putting, and you said put the hat on. Lake Tahoe for me was really great. Yeah, we had delays, the sun, but the whole experience, it was so cool. I look back at some of the photos and the pictures and the memories of that experience, and I thought that was unique, and I'd like to explore, and I think our commissioner would be willing to do that as well, explore other options. So we've looked at it all. And I'll tell you, the experience during COVID was really pretty cool because we did really go into pretty extreme detail of, could we play a game of the Grand Canyon? How about looking at Lake Louise, which is the most beautiful place on earth, which is in Canada? We looked at so many different locations, and we settled on Tahoe for a lot of reasons. That being said, and I've said this out loud, so I don't want the commissioner to be upset with me, but I will say this again. For me, this is Steve Mayer, this is personal. I would love to play a game because of the uniqueness of our league and the fact that we have 7 teams in Canada and the rest in the United States. I would love to play a game that would be outdoors on the border of the United States and Canada.
Wow.
And half the game would be played in the United States and half the game would be played in Canada. And I'd lean into, border patrol people at center ice, and we'd have fun with it. And you'd have half the crowd being for the Canadian team, half the crowd for the US team. I think that would be okay, if anybody's going to do that, it would only be the NHL. And that could be pretty fun. And we've explored, there's 5 or 6 really cool locations where you could pull that off. So you asked the question. I don't know if that's remotely in our future. We have a bunch of places lined up for the next 2 or 3 years that are outdoors and stadiums and, great places, amazing places, which we'll be announcing over the course of the next year or so. But, that would be my personal interest. But, Central Park, why not? I've heard it a million times.
I thought of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, Central Park. Well, New York would be, there's a bunch of places around the New York area that, could work. But, we've heard them all. And I got news for you. We've probably explored them all as well.
Yeah, the one idea that I had that I'll throw out there while we're talking, because when am I going to get this chance again, right?
Go for it.
Like it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of getting away from the outdoor concept, but just like a smaller hockey venue. Now, the only problem there is I don't know that it would make much sense from a business perspective, because obviously you couldn't sell as many tickets. But I mean, there's this thing that I don't know if you've heard of it, the Shoulder Check Showcase. They do it in Stamford, Connecticut every summer. It's a charity game.
I know it well.
Yeah. So that's obviously an awesome event. And it just kind of got me thinking, like, man, how cool would it be to see, like, even if it's just a preseason game, like you put 2 NHL teams in here and everybody, I mean, you buy a ticket and you're right on top of the action. Everybody's got a great seat.
So, John, you should look this up. So we have a Craft Hockeyville series, mostly in Canada, but we have done it in the United States as well. And the whole idea is that send us the story of your rink, and then what happens is we go and we refurbish the rink, but part of it is we bring a preseason game into, and you're describing it like, 2,000 people, like the whole town comes out. It's the coolest thing in the world. And I've been at a few of them that I'll tell you, it hits right here. It is so cool. I mean, so I love that, like some of the barns that, that are just have such history and are so unique. Like I think that's a great idea, and we're doing it a little, but I also love the fact you watch the reaction of our players, that they really buy into it. We did one in Halifax with Sidney Crosby where he's it was incredible. The whole town, like every single person in the town was there. It was great. So you're onto something for sure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well done.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a ton of fun. I'll ask you one more question. We'll let you get out of here. I'm sure you're busy with everything going on with the Winter Classic. But, just generally speaking with the NHL this season, it's been very competitive. I glanced at the standings real quick because I know everything's tight. The Eastern Conference right now, and really the entire league, but the Eastern Conference in particular is insane because right now the Blue Jackets are in last place in the conference. They're 4 points out of a playoff spot. So just a remarkably competitive season across the board in the NHL. It really feels like it's anybody's cup this year. We could see teams kind of come out of nowhere. Other teams might fall out, but just your thoughts on what I think has been an extraordinarily competitive season thus far.
It's unbelievable. Every morning you wake up, you have to look at the standings because they change, and they're going to continue to change. We've been, we not, I don't think spoiled, but we have every year, you just never know. And if you think you're predicting who's going to win the Stanley Cup, you're crazy. Cause it's so competitive. And you just don't know. It's why also the trade deadline, it's so impactful. You pick up a player here and there, and you've seen what's happened in the last few years. Those pickups lead to, the difference between potentially winning a cup or making a playoff or not making a playoff. So I truly love it because it just adds to the interest, and so many fan bases are in it until the very end, and that's why games like this, it's why our job is so important to have the NHL quality ice and all of the above, because this could be the game that people point to that was the difference between a playoff spot or not. It's going to come down to it, and we've been asked so many times about play-in tournaments and other things that, will lead to, potentially more interest. Yes. But we always say, do we really need it? Every night is a play-in tournament. It's just incredible. And so you hit it. I'm very curious as to what's about to happen, because we're heading into, 2026. And, one team gets a hot streak and it changes everything, and you've seen that, over the course of this beginning of the season. A few teams have gone on, the 7-game heater, the 8-game heater, and it's now put them in a playoff position. And that could be the case for any of the teams that are looking up right now and trying to figure out if they're going to make it. It takes one winning streak and you're in.
Yeah, so you mentioned the playoff format. I will throw in one more bonus question here before we call it. Hopefully that's okay. But
And you said your last question. How many last questions are you going to have?
So the playoff format, a lot of people really liked 1 through 8. I know that, this playoff format, I want to say it's been around for about 12 or 13 years, give or take. Is the NHL overall, you guys are happy with the playoff format that you have now and you prefer that over 1 through 8?
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, of course we're listening and we hear what people are talking to. We're very happy. It's going to stay that way. And so stop asking another question, John.
Fair enough.
No, listen, yeah. And again, we're so competitive. You can't argue against that.
Yeah.
And then when we get into the playoffs are the best in any sport. You're not the best playoff in any sport. And we're not saying that. It's not a marketing thing. It's what everybody says.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. It's a reason for that. So I think we just gotta, move on to the next question. Let's enjoy the Winter Classic. All good.
Amen.
And what do you think? Are the Rangers gonna make the playoffs?
I think they will. I've been kind of sticking with that the whole time. The tough thing for them is they're in a tough spot come the trade deadline because, of course, Artemi Panarin's an impending free agent. And what do you do? Do you try to extend him? Do you just hold on to him? Do you deal him? I think it's going to depend on where they are in the standings. But I feel like they've kind of dug in with this core group. So I feel like if they're in a playoff spot or close, they'll probably proceed with Panarin. So we'll see how that goes for sure. But this is a big game for them.
Yes, it is. And and we're happy that all the New York folks are coming to town. It's going to be fun. For us, we're going to give them a show, and we'll see what only one team can leave happy. But I really do think it's going to be a really cool experience. And again, the Rangers have been in quite a few of these outdoor games. Based on how it's sort of playing out, and every year they're the visiting team, and I'm not going to get into the reasons, those. I think this is one of the best games that we're going to have ever put on. So that's what we're very excited about.
Absolutely. So, Steve, this is a ton of fun. Thank you so much for joining the show. And I think I speak for myself and Ranger fans everywhere. We're happy to welcome you back onto this show anytime you'd like to join us again in the future.
Anytime. All you have to do is ask. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So, Ranger fans, thank you guys as always for tuning in. We'll see you next time.